Welcome, everyone, to another episode of PodPeople, the place where we come together to see and hear people. People who make things happen, people who stand out, people who inspire. Our guest today is psychiatrist Dr. Felipe Batistela. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, Anna. I'm good, Alex. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
We're so glad you accepted our invitation. Before we get started, my dear, I wanted to ask you a quick question. What do you find annoying? Something annoying in your daily life?
What really bothers me is noise, A lot of people talking at the same time and all that. Sometimes I tend to hyperfocus,
So you're sensitive to that.
Maybe it's because I'm a musician, I don't know.
Because you're a musician.
Noise, all at once.
So, let me ask you, does the sound of a mosquito bother you?
Oh my God. Ha 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 ha. It really gets on my nerves.
No, mosquitoes are something that annoys everyone because, the noise is unbearable. The bite stings. Usually.
I caught dengue fever that day.
You got dengue? Well, I have good news for you. Because, it stings. And on top of that, we end up spreading disease. Just look at your case with dengue. Hello, my friend. First, I'd like you to tell us a little bit about your journey. And why did you choose psychiatry? And within psychiatry, why did you decide to pursue a somewhat different kind of psychiatry? A bit more empathetic and a bit more natural.
Very good, very good. So for those who don't know me, though I've already been introduced, I'm Felipe Batistela, Vanessa's husband. Just imagine a beautiful woman, Margarita. I'm the father of Mateus, Lauren, and Liz. I won't say since I was little, no. When I was younger, not that I'm old, okay? No. I really liked basketball. And I really liked biology, science at school, but in my mind, I was going to become a basketball player. At least, that's what I thought. Then one day, my dad said, "Hey son, have you ever thought about what would happen if you got hurt? And sometimes during a tough practice, a knee injury, what would you do after that? What if it's an injury? Not that your dad is."
He just brought up a possibility.
And I said, "Wow, Dad, that's true. Since you like it so much, why don't you start studying already? Go to a university that sometimes offers both things and all that. What would you do?" I said, "Well, I like psychology and medicine." "But psychology, how?" I said, "Well, I like understanding human behavior, people's reactions and all that. But I don't know, I really like biology, science, that kind of thing."
Have you always liked kids?
And sometimes it was still like, some family members would tease me, call me childish. I'd say, I prefer them because they're genuine. They don't have to put on a show. And I had fun. So people would say, "So you're going to be a pediatrician?" "Oh, okay." But then came the dilemma of the college entrance exam, some frustrations until I finally got in, having to deal with disappointments, with everyone's expectations, that I ended up letting down, let's put it that way. And so I really had to dive deep into why that was happening, into figuring out how to deal with disapproval, actually. So I went through a really tough time during the college entrance exams, where, in the end, no one really believed I was going to make it. But thank God, I changed a lot about how I studied and learned. And in this process of trying to learn things I didn't like in a different way, I started developing a skill for speaking. I'm not from a wealthy family. I wasn't. So when I got into college, I needed to make a little extra money.
To be able to cover the cost of books and food.
So at the time, I remember I bought a snack warmer and said, "I'm going to sell snacks at a prep course."
Really?
Exactly. I thought, but how am I going to do that while studying medicine? I said, I bought the snack warmer, then I started looking around, went to several bakeries, and started collecting phone numbers. I managed to find people who made the snacks and delivered them to me. But then I asked the prep course, "Don't you want me to also give tutoring lessons for the students as well?" "Yeah, there's time," I said. "Oh, we'll figure it out," and all that.
But at the prep course or in college?
No, at prep.
So it was before then?
Yeah, it was before I got in.
Sorry. I got in, and in my first year, then
Oh, you went to give.
You went back there to a prep course.
To teach classes. And you offered those snacks.
Exactly. Then they agreed, like, oh, okay, right? It was just a little bit that I was going to pay myself to, but it was very noble. It's just that after that, I found a prep course, actually a school, for tutoring students from private schools who weren't doing well, not just for the college entrance exam, but for any grade.
Were you there?
I can already see it was God's plan because then I'd walk into a classroom. Alex was there in 7th grade, Anna in her senior year, Joe in sophomore year. So I had to ask, but which subject do you need help with? Oh, whatever you want. I didn't try hard enough to pass the entrance exam.
He needs it. I don't have a choice.
And so my mind was being trained to find different ways to explain difficult things from different subjects to different areas.
Cool.
So I was at a table like this, I teach a little, then you do some exercises and so on. And when I started college, I got frustrated because I realized that most of the professors hid behind their resumes. Their resumes were miles long. They were basically academic dinosaurs, right? But when it came time to actually explain things, it was really hard. When I saw that, I thought, oh my God. If I learn how to explain things in a way people actually understand, I'll already be making a difference in a lot of lives. And all of this was happening at the same time as I was in prep courses, and so on. And then, as college went on, I thought, you know what? Now it's me and my classmates. So the difficult things in medicine, I usually tell people, oh, did you do it? A summary? I'd say, let's study together.
You started to specialize in explaining complex things in a simple way.
Exactly. Without losing, let's put it this way, the scientific validity, the actual content. Because you see, having a good sense of humor doesn't mean you're not serious. A lot of people think it does. And the fact that I might use simpler words here with you guys, I believe that doesn't take away from what I know.
On the contrary, I think it actually adds value and makes knowledge much more accessible to a lot more people.
Then I was faced with a dilemma after college, because I also liked the academic field. But then my father passed away right in the middle of my undergraduate studies. It was a terrible tragedy. And then I realized that I couldn't. Well, I could, but it would be a bit ungrateful of me to leave college and go straight into a residency because my mom and my sister gave up a big part of their income, so I could finish at least in my mind. So I thought I have to start working, exactly. Help out at home, exactly. And then, well, the academic side. I'll do a master's, a PhD later, but it bothered me to talk like that. But I have to explain that you need to deliver mental health in a different way so that people understand, because conferences are a really cool place. But I think that they end up being too segregated. Knowledge gets isolated among people, mostly those with a lot of financial means. And many of them aren't even sick. So for that knowledge to actually reach the people who are really suffering, it takes a long time, right?
But in practice, right there on the front lines, it's about changing the life of the person who's actually in need.
So, in my mind, I feel like it was almost a revelation from God. I thought, wait, I'm going to be one of the voices that responds is for those people who cry out in their mental struggles and aren't comforted, just like you two are. I want to be a voice, even with God. May the Lord help me actually achieve that. Make me the right instrument to be used to bring comfort, relief, and understanding. And things started to unfold after that. For that, the pandemic was a real shakeup and a wake-up call. And now, you're going to the online part, there won't be just two. 3 years ago, I didn't even have any of this Instagram stuff, you know? Everything happened quickly within this movement.
And when you started, now you're a psychiatrist, you've been through all of this. What would you say is different in your psychiatric practice today?
Compared to, is the beginning now.
From the beginning to now,
Look, the more I study, the less medication I prescribe. I give.
this is a feature. Yours. Less is more.
Exactly, it's about being more precise.
You're a good listener. You really try to understand the patient's story and try to create several strategies. And with that, medication too, when it's necessary.
That's exactly it, because if you look at any guideline or a major psychiatry compendium, you'll see that psychiatric disorders are multifactorial.
Always.
If there are several causes, why would I focus only on the biological aspect of medication? And they are very important, especially because people take way too long to seek help. So by then, the person is already in a state where there's been a change in brain chemistry, and sometimes we're going to meet an agent called a selective inhibitor, and, other things to help get things organized.
At least to start giving that patient a chance to begin to understand themselves, right?
But hey, remember I said I really like psychology? So alongside medicine and psychiatry, I've always liked studying human behavior. And also philosophy, which really helps with the existential side of things.
It nourishes us, right?
It's something we can draw from, right?
Alex, I'm not. But when someone sits down and says, "Wow, doctor, are you a psychologist too?" No, I'm just interested in understanding what you feel.
I'm a good listener.
And that makes all the difference. People are more engaged, they understand, they change their habits and routines. And that makes the treatment process progress much faster.
What you're saying is so great. I don't know why. I'm a psychiatrist, Alex is a psychologist. And I've always thought it was essential for psychiatrists and psychologists to work hand in hand for the benefit of the patient. And for a long time, at least I'm from that generation, it seemed like there was a rivalry. Psychiatrists were only in favor of medication, and psychologists were the ones who were totally against medication, as if we forget about the patient. Let's just have our own personal ego battle.
And that's pretty much what happens.
A little less than today. We can even talk about it now. It used to be really hard to talk about this.
Nowadays, we can bring this up in a much more relaxed way, and I don't see any difference. I don't know if it's because of how much time we've spent together, but Anna has always been a reference point for me. And I also observed how she also observed my work. And one thing I noticed is that when Anna had a session, it would last 2 hours. And it was 2 hours of talking, of conversation, of For her, it was really about understanding that whole mechanism. And then I realized the only thing that sets me apart from Anna is the medication. Because therapeutically, she does an amazing job. She takes a full patient history. Then I continue working with the patient. But there's the technique, right? So I think that makes all the difference when a psychiatrist has that therapeutic perspective.
Were you able to find partners, psychologists, female psychologists?
Yes.
That's great.
Yes, it's important. But this war, I think, in part, is unnecessary, right?
Total.
It's a struggle. Who wants better psychology? I don't think that's a thing. The ones who lose this fight are those who think there's a competition.
One who loses is patient.
Exactly.
Which is the ultimate goal of any therapy or therapist.
Even on Instagram, pretty often I say, look, guys, look for therapy first, so you don't even need me. It's not that I'm denying the responsibility of helping others, but I get no satisfaction from having someone sit in front of me extremely ill, so I have to prescribe medication. I don't enjoy it. I wish you didn't even need it. And since you have to use it, let's use as little as possible. But I think culturally, that's starting to change a bit in Brazil. It's that thing of valuing doctors too much and not giving enough credit to other professionals.
Exactly.
So if I have to pay for a psychologist, I already pay for the doctor. Guys, it's not a substitute, No matter how much you and I, in our practice, try our best, right? To provide support, some guidance in terms of psychotherapy, but it'll never reach the level that Alex and his colleagues do. Every week.
It's a process, right? What we do is more of an intervention. Usually, it's a temporary crisis intervention. We are the firefighters. Alex and those other amazing psychologists, they're the ones rebuilding. We put out the fire, but the whole house still needs to be rebuilt.
There's something about this partnership. In the work that we do, one of the things I've always admired and always thought about as a person, even before I was with Anna. And in college, we don't really see much of that. I'm not downplaying my own work because I know what I do and how valuable it is. But I think that in certain moments, when you step in, the patient is so fragile, so hurt, that if you go straight into therapy without having support there, from a psychiatrist or someone else, it can actually get in the way of the process. And we have this partnership that works really well. To know the right moment for that therapy to come in.
Which isn't for us either, right, Felipe? I've already seen patients who clearly didn't need it. It was just a matter of therapy. I would go through the whole protocol of diagnostic impression, therapeutic possibilities, and every time I listed therapeutic possibilities, I would put option A, B, and C. I've always done it that way. And many times, option A, which was always the one I thought was best. But I would explain it to the patient. Many times I would say, it's therapy. It's therapy.
That's foundational.
Sometimes they get frustrated. So you're not going to take care of me? No, it won't. I'm taking care of you. I'm guiding you.
Physical activity. Many times I prescribed physical activity. What kind of physical activity? Many times I prescribed dietary changes. Many times. And I would say, this is a prescription.
Even. Maybe. Another reason was actually something related to one of the causes I stand for on the internet. I believe that a good portion, or let's say a significant portion, of psychologists who still have this rivalry with psychiatrists, they do have some reason to feel that way.
I think so.
Because there are some old school psychiatrists who really go heavy on the medication.
Yes.
Which makes psychologists feel like they're nothing.
Exactly.
Unfortunately.
Especially the controlled substances, the benzodiazepines, and so on, which interfere with the process of catharsis, accessing the unconscious, generating insights and self-criticism.
Even your feelings. You need to feel sadness in order to work through sadness. You don't have to be ecstatic all the time in life. That's why we have a generation that takes medication to sleep, to wake up, and they're getting more and more lost. This emptiness that's forming.
That's really my mission, how to have a more balanced, calmer mind, with less and less need for tranquilizers. And there's no way to achieve that without getting into the field of human development and physical activity. I started studying integrative medicine, which is amazing, right?
It's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah.
What does it bring? And a lot of doctors have that attitude, like that stuff doesn't work.
It's easy to judge what you don't know.
But once you start looking into it, I started studying it a bit. It's really beautiful. It doesn't mean that's the only thing. It just means it's another tool that we have. It doesn't mean, for example, just the other day, I saw something, I was at a salon, and a woman came up to me, I saw an integrative. Doctors say that autism is caused by gluten. I said, look, it's not quite like that. To be autistic, there has to be a genetic factor. Cutting out gluten is good for a lot of people, for most people actually. Will it help someone with autism? Very likely, just like cutting out excess refined sugar will help too. Just like physical activity will help a lot, but it's not the cause of autism. So, of course, there will be extreme views everywhere, but it's a very valuable tool to add to our knowledge. Very valuable.
Hold.
It helps a lot, really a lot. So, you're the guy who's coming in to clear things up a bit, to bring a little bit of information from integrative medicine to fight for reducing medication use. What was the case involving medication use that caught your attention the most?
That I used it wrong?
One time, I had a young man with severe OCD who was taking 48 pills. I'm not exaggerating, it was 48. And our patient who takes 2 pills a day and does neuromodulation, does neurofeedback, and is the sweetest person. He wouldn't touch us, he wouldn't touch doorknobs, but he wanted the appointment. Yes.
He would only touch the 48 pills, nothing else.
The mother who laid.
Look at that. No, you beat me with that one, but still.
I'm telling you because I've seen things.
I'm not jealous to be like that. No.
I'm not jealous of a case like that. When I saw that, I thought, guys, it was just too surreal.
He had no life. He really had no life. There was even a recent case, not about pills specifically, but it felt like the patient, or rather, the person taking care of the patient, actually, he came He went through several doctors, so it seemed like he carried a legacy from each one, and that legacy was a new medication.
No one reviewed it,
They kept adding another one and keeping the previous ones.
Exactly.
So the patient was taking, I think, 3 different types of antidepressants, each on their own schedule, 2 or 3 times a day. He was taking a lot of benzodiazepines.
Which is totally contradictory. Benzodiazepines are depressants.
Right? And an antipsychotic. It was a total mess. And I looked at it. Even the father had mentioned before, saying, look, he has addiction issues, dependency problems. I thought, my God, giving all these medications to someone who already has a tendency to abuse substances. I went to talk to him, the doctor, but everyone says he is bipolar. He has bipolar disorder. That's what it is. That's what everyone says. So let's see if that's really the case or not. Because when he told me that and I saw all those antidepressants, I said, honestly,
If he's bipolar, he'd be manic, especially with 3 antidepressants.
haven't seen signs yet.
That can't be.
It's weird. There hasn't been any switch, no mania or anything like that. Then when he came in, poor guy, he has such intense ADHD that it made him vulnerable to addiction. He's at higher risk. And he really went off the family's usual path, was judged, then got into addiction. But when he supposedly had mania, and I went to talk to him, it wasn't actually mania. He was having euphoric changes because of the substance from using too much. He used drugs, he did. But fortunately, he was right in front of me, doing well. So I looked into it, ADHD. It's really intense, especially the highs. But he was intense in the hyperactive subtype, so he actually made some academic progress, and no one ever stopped to pay attention. He's smart, he can do it. That's the thing with ADHD. It's a myth that people with ADHD can't succeed. It can actually be the opposite.
Exactly, Donkey does badly in school.
I did pretty reasonably well back then. So, when I talked to him, I said, I'm going to tell you something, your meds, everything you're taking, we're probably going to stop all of it, because now we're going to handle this differently. And then 10 days later, treating ADHD works fast, right? He was already feeling better.
That's true. I was watching and also getting hyped up for this.
So, doctor, I'm fine, man. Now I'm going to be able to follow through on my projects, because he was that kind of person, smart at everything, but never finished anything.
He'd start and stop, start and stop.
You gonna? Now I'm focused. And so on and so on. So that was a recent example of someone who was taking more than 10, 15 pills, 48. No. And it was a mess. And all the previous doctors before me, it seems like they just kept going oh, bipolar disorder, oh, depression, anxiety, without reviewing the case. It's partly true, but it's also a lie, and that keeps getting perpetuated. Even I, Alex, when I'm seeing a patient and things aren't working out, sometimes I say, let's do this. You're going to leave my office now. Man, I feel old at that moment. Come back in. You're going to come back in, and I'll greet you as if I've never met you before, because there's something in your history that I didn't ask about, and our ongoing relationship is making me overlook it. So let's pretend we don't know each other. Please forgive me, but I'm going to have to do a brand new consultation with you from scratch. All right, doctor. All right, please, I'll leave your office. Perfect. And then we talk about greetings.
Something comes up that he forgot to mention or you forgot to ask. Oh, doctor, actually, there's something I've never told you.
So this, the history, the diagnosis, the life story, or what you've been doing wrong doesn't count.
A lot of times.
It changes everything.
I've always told Alex, patients don't lie because they want to. It's just that he simply thinks, oh, but I didn't know I was supposed to mention that.
I didn't think that.
I thought that.
Yeah, it's important, not out of malice.
If we don't have that approach of asking slowly, really focusing on every little detail, loses.
There was a case like that, a woman I had been treating for over a year, and her panic attacks just weren't getting better. And we had a good rapport, a real connection, until one day, without me even asking, she said, Doctor, there's something I've been keeping from you for a year, and I need to tell you. And I said, okay, sure, go ahead. And She opened up and confessed that she had contracted a disease, HIV. And no one in the town knew, and she was carrying that burden, keeping it to herself. Alex, she told me all of that. And you could just see it pouring out of her. All that tension, all that anguish. It
was liberating for her, right?
absolutely incredibly liberating. Within a month, she didn't have any more panic attacks.
You took away her fear.
I took her off the medication. She never came back. She must be doing well. So, for anyone undergoing treatment, trust your therapist, trust your doctor. Because many times, it's not what goes into your mouth, it's what comes out of it. That relieves the soul, releases tension in the body and mind, and sometimes it even heals.
You said something wonderful, which I think is from Matthew in the Bible. Yeah, it says something like that what goes into the mouth, we know exactly what it is, and even where it comes out.
Yes, Paul, you talked about it in Romans,
What comes out is that, Paul.
in Letter to Romans.
What comes out, that's another one. Exactly.
Jesus in Matthew.
What comes out is what can really determine a lot of things.
There's a verse that says, confess your faults to one another so that you may be healed.
Exactly.
So for anyone who thinks psychotherapy isn't in the Bible, it is confessing my situation to Alex, because that creates a movement from chaos to cosmos, from disorder to order.
Exactly.
And sometimes it's dark.
That perspective, right? Of not judging, we have this saying, we always say, we never wanted to be judges. It's true because we're not here to judge you. And that already brings a huge sense of relief to the patient, right? And our role there isn't to judge anything, it's to welcome and work with whatever comes, right? There's even a saying that goes, oh, is what I'm doing wrong? From the moment you don't have a guilty conscience the next day, just keep going, I think we need to have a bit of that attitude. And when we have more doctors like you, like Anna, and therapists who can help, it's liberating. We start getting rid of a lot of symptoms.
One thing I saw a lot on your channel is the issue of negative effects on the brain. What is it? And I totally agree with you. This tendency the brain has to always focus on bad things and have a really hard time holding on to good things or building good habits.
Look, there's even this is kind of a trick from prep courses, okay? Sometimes I come up with, let's go. Sometimes I come up with little tricks like that to memorize things. It's the treatment that moves forward, life that moves forward, or it goes backward. And the brain, it's conditioned by the direction you give it. My name means horse trainer, Felipe.
Really? Felipe? Horse trainer?
Guys, I ride horses.
Do you actually ride horses?
Very little, but still. Trainer. One time I was even reading philosophy, that metaphor of the chariot, driven by a white horse and a black horse that Plato uses. Which is more or less our temperament and our character. And if they're not aligned, your life goes off track, because if you become a slave, completely subject to your temperament, it'll pull you in one direction. Maybe your character will get dragged along by it, or the opposite could happen. Someone who is very moralized, he might end up repressed, instead of finding a balance between their personality and the values that guide them. Because I had seen it like this, Our name says a lot about us here, and it has to do with the horse. The day I realized that, I thought, okay, I need to learn how to train my temperament first and grow in my character in a way that doesn't repress me, doesn't embarrass me, doesn't take me away from my identity, so that I can move forward and help other people do the same thing. So a lot of this happens in the office. That's it, helping the person understand what belongs to them, what others have put on them, and what takes away their clear vision for their own life direction, and go. That's what often makes a person get stuck on medication. Why go? The letters V, A, and I. It's an acrostic.
The letter V.
What?
And go. Okay. G-O-V.
And you go backward, you go forward, A lot of people are slaves to their willpower. The first V stands for vi, go.
Willpower.
Willpower, right. Oh, I don't feel like going to the therapist. I don't feel like taking care of my health.
Go if you don't want to.
Oh, I don't feel like exercising. Oh, I don't feel like doing this. So a lot of people have this immature behavior. Not to say childish, but I just said it. But that's what it is. Of, oh, I don't like it. I don't want it. Oh, I'm not going to the doctor. No, not to the therapist. As if that were a sign of strength, especially among men, right? I'm strong. I'm going to refuse. And so on. But in reality, that's a huge sign of recklessness. But then, it's not just a matter of, oh, I'll just stay here. When you don't move forward, inevitably, you end up going in the opposite direction and dragging your loved ones down with you. A man who is anxious, for example, irritable, hot-tempered, insecure, explosive, aggressive, he doesn't bring a sense of safety, protection, provision, or direction. He sets limits for his family, so he kind of makes everyone sick. The mother does too.
Absolutely.
But if your brain kicks in, when you don't feel like doing something and you don't do it, that's when the compensations start to show up. In the word, vi stands for alienation. Alienation is when you deny, pretend, or distract yourself from the pain you feel. And many people don't actually treat it. They alienate themselves with medication. So, why is medication so harmful? Because it's being used for the wrong purpose. The problem isn't the breads of life. It's about how you use it. And sometimes I hear things like this. Alex and patience and doctor, give me a medication to shut me off. And I want to wake up and not remember anything. And sometimes, woman, it's cause of reality. It's an escape.
Absolutely.
The woman, like the doctor, can't sleep. I said, but tell me a bit, who sleeps next to you that you can't sleep? Then there will be marital fights, that terrible situation and all. She's taking medication to forget, to sedate, to alienate herself from the ogre who's sitting next to her, from Goliath over there who's causing trouble.
The effect will wear off and she'll want to double the dose.
Exactly.
Not solving the problem.
Doesn't solve it.
Doesn't solve it.
So a lot of people end up taking more and more medication because they don't want to find the real cause. The real cause. They become slaves to this urge to change the way they live. I was born this way. I grew up this way.
At least she opened up.
You get it? Then you get to the point where someone is in front of a doctor, sometimes almost pressuring the professional to give them a prescription for their medication. Exactly.
The prestige of that prescription. Then you look at the public health system, where our poor colleagues, right? Anna, they have to see 50 psychiatric patients just in the morning. My God.
Not possible.
I take a long time with my appointments. Then someone comes in and says, I want this doctor. Give me 3 prescriptions.
They repeat.
Go, just leave.
1, 2, 3, 4, 10 years go by.
They come back again to get more.
So, on one hand, we have people who don't want to face things, who don't have the will to deal with their problems, the traumas of life, to reinterpret the past, to go back in order to move forward. It's a bit paradoxical, but that's how it is.
But that's exactly it.
If your life is stuck, not moving forward, it's because you stopped at some point and you're just pretending to move forward, but you're really not. And then you numb yourself with medication. So, we have this kind of alienation in colleagues.
And what?
And colleagues who often prescribe that. Just give it a go. In the sense that it's an anesthesia that doesn't take away the pain, it just makes you numb. Then it all turns into chaos.
And the I?
Intimidation.
Willpower. Alienation. Intimidation.
Because as I'm saying this here, there are people watching us thinking like this. I'm afraid to stop taking my medication.
I mess with anything. I had patients who used to say that. Mess with anything.
Dig no, my past Alex. Coming questions. What am I like? I've suffered a lot. I'm not going to mess with that.
Don't mess with that.
You have to leave it there in the bag. Make sure it's there.
Fear is terrible. We might feel fear, but we can't let ourselves be. ruled by it. Because fear stifles your development. It keeps you from overcoming obstacles and challenges. It's true. So, an intimidated person is someone who puts too much value on the illness, puts too much value on a suffering, as if it would be terrible to stop taking the medicine, and easy to just keep living the way they are. So, they go back to that zone they prefer, because of intimidation, to stay in that zone. They just leave things the way they are.
Whether you like it or not, it's a familiar zone, right? It's a comfort zone even if it's not right. It's familiar.
I'm not. Alex, I've improved about 50%. Don't mess with it. You're afraid to shake things up, to get to 100%, but if you're at 50%, you're going to go back, you're going to regress. Because your brain knows it's a biochemical workaround that's being done. And then the neurons start to settle, the receptors kind of become desensitized. Soon, you're going to need more and more. Many people end up in that situation where they don't know. I'm not okay with the medication, but I'm worse without it.
The majority.
But then you'll have to align your willpower. You're going to have to get out of this. Oh, I don't have the will? I want to get better. I need to stop alienating myself by going to professionals who basically just want to write me a prescription and never see me again.
Who end up being accomplices to my alienation.
Exactly. I want clarity.
Even if it hurts.
Even if it hurts. Instead of intimidation, I'm going to take initiative. So we align our will. We break out of this alienation. We trade that intimidation, that fear, for boldness. And then I go there, I take initiative, I do it, but under some guidance, because it messes with your mind so much. And really, a person's life is like Pandora's box, with millions of troubles inside. If you want to do this alone, by yourself, that's reckless. Just because we're criticizing the misuse of medication doesn't mean you should stop on your own. Don't do that.
Absolutely not.
In the darkness of a mind that isn't working well, you need someone to guide you with a light. So you can bring yourself out, of course.
You have to be well guided. Gradually.
To withdraw.
That patient who was taking 48 pills, I think it took me 6 months. 2. Get them down to 0.
The vitamins, if they worked well.
The modulation. It was a lot of work, because I had to write a new prescription every 5 days.
It was weekly.
So he kept giving them, because I said, there's no point in doing this over the phone. Like, now reduce this. No, that leaves too much room for misunderstanding. It's not really a prescription anymore. So I would write it for this date to that date, from this day to that day. Sometimes he would leave with 30 sheets. Because it was required. Everything was organized. And I said, it's like a checklist. When you're done with this one for a certain date, grab the next one. Don't keep patching up the old one, so it takes work. But that's what needs to be done.
People ask me, Doctor, what's the best medicine for sleep? More and more, I realize that the best medicine for sleep, considering the VAI, the best medicine for sleep is to wake up from this life that isn't working. Worse than those who die are those who live like they're already dead, who chose to hide in denial. So, wake up. Come on. It hurts. The crust in your eyes hurts. Emotional. That thing, your body is stiff, like someone who hasn't walked in a long time. But wake up while you sleep. Because if you sleep now, you'll wake up at the very moment when you should have the most peace. What was yours? Sleep. Which was to rest. If you don't wake up, you don't rest. You might feel numb. But you'll never truly feel rested here on earth. Light. Free.
And there's one thing. In life, anything can happen in life. Just know, the only thing that doesn't happen is stability. Life is unstable. Change happens whether you want it or not. The evolution of the species itself, it will happen. If you do nothing, evolution will still happen, but the evolution of our consciousness, that's something we have to work on. So, there's no use. Life here is about movement. It's about ups and downs, and we have to learn to be happy with that. in spite of that, because it's going to happen. So I see people say, "This happened, my father died." Then the person just freezes. Death is part of life. It's a rule of life.
But living as if you're dead isn't.
No, but living as if you're dead, that's not it. We're not here for that.
And these challenges make us greater.
Felipe, so what are your pillars like? You work. Medication is still part of it. But are there alternatives? For example, at our clinic, we have a protocol, right? Patient, physical exercise, nutrition, therapy, relaxation. And for you, what is your structure for a consultation with a patient who has depression?
Very good, very good. So, what I do is review the diagnosis to see if it really is just depression or a component of depression. But when it comes time to reach a conclusion, you have to assess whether medication is really needed and how much medication. I explain to them, look, there's a chance that this will have a beginning, a middle, and an end. A well-done psychiatric treatment for a first episode of depression, for example, will take about 2 to 3 months to achieve symptomatic remission.
Remission.
That's the initial phase. What is remission, doctor? It means returning to your normal self. Then after that, there's a maintenance phase that lasts about a year. On average. If you're on a second treatment, it's 2 years, and then a gradual withdrawal. So, I already tell the patient, look, this is how it works. But during this maintenance phase, you're really going to feel like stopping because of the medication.
Because everything feels fine.
Everything's fine, and people will tell you, stop taking that, you don't need it, you'll end up getting addicted. But it's not a medication that causes addiction.
Exactly. Antidepressants aren't addictive.
I even tell them, like, understand this, your brain. Because of everything that happened in his life, he became a bad student. You know who the worst student in the class is? But be careful, sometimes the worst student is actually the smartest one, it's just that the way they function is off. So, from a biochemical perspective, treatment works kind of like this. It's as if the medication takes the bad student inside your head and helps them learn how to function properly again. What can happen? Well, just like with a bad student, there can be tantrums, acting out. So, you might experience some side effects at first. And if you read the medication leaflet, that bad student will make you feel exactly what's written there, just to prove to you that there's a time limit for using it. So, let's keep at it, okay? Because, a good teacher understands that when a bad student starts to make progress, if you just leave them alone, they'll go back to doing everything wrong again. So, this is the maintenance phase. That's that 1 year. That 1 year when you, along with your therapist and your psychiatrist, will be taking care of that bad student so he doesn't backslide. But after a year, it's as if, besides learning how to function again, right, he internalizes that as the truth. Then you can gradually step away from that bad student, and he'll keep doing well, even without medication, even without therapy. So it's a...
You got the brain back on track, right? Exactly. You repositioned it and said, "Hey, let's get back to working like this, okay?" But now he already knows.
Bringing knowledge.
But that's just one step. I really like to use I even created a training program that I call Health Weapons. Another acrostic, okay? Because that person. Guys, you try to discharge them, but don't they relapse? It happens a lot if you don't pick up the right weapons for your health. Because to win this tough battle with your thoughts, with your brain chemistry, you need the right weapons. So, you're going to have to change your diet, you'll need to reassess your relationships, and you'll have to learn to meditate so you can stop acting on impulse. Establish truths that actually build you up, instead of those false truths, those lies that just make you feel worse and worse. Physical activity. And you know that sleep you're missing? You'll start sleeping. There's not much more to say about it. I sleep with you, who in the end changes the way you eat. When you choose better relationships and learn to deal with them, you resolve relationship issues, because therapy is fantastic. Actually, it's not just fantastic, it's logical, it's deep.
She shows.
Exactly. For someone to meditate, you're going to review your beliefs, stop looking outward, stop giving so much importance to external pressures. Realize that you have internal strengths. When we start doing that, of course, I can guide you, but a therapist will do it even better. It's like you're pulling the person out. You really move from a journey of illness to walking a path of health. It's so beautiful because you end up needing less medication, Alex. There have been times, Anna.
It makes you stronger. From a really serious condition, you know? I said, wow, you're going to have to take medication for the rest of your life. So many things, you've started and stopped all kinds of treatments. I said, look, do your part, everything is working out. Maybe in a few years I'll start to slowly take you off the meds. But the person took it so seriously, especially, and really dedicated themselves.
Became a triathlete. And physical exercise is so interesting. It's such a powerful keystone habit. What does that mean? After you do it, you think, I'm not going to waste my workout today.
Exactly.
I got up, I went for a walk and everything, so I'm not going to eat junk food today. So she started.
It's self-regulating for your behavior, right?
And what releases endorphins in our brain, which are the natural antidepressants God gave us, is movement. So she kind of started. This is the best form of self-medication there is. Walk, go outside, take a walk, exercise. And then she started improving so much and began to take care of her diet, cut out a bunch of things that were bad for her. I recommended some supplements to her, and she sorted out her relationships. And she was reading the Bible, meditating, looking for new books. Consequently, when you start learning good things, bad people can't stand being around you anymore.
Or sometimes we can't stand being around the bad person anymore.
You start to realize that you want to change. So, the weapons of health, when you get that in order, you're no longer someone defeated by illness. You become the general of your own life. And health, she is much stronger than the disease. The problem is that many people run away from it.
They don't know what health is.
And they become slaves to their desires, to alienation, to intimidation. So, in this way, Alex, it's scary for some of our colleagues. How do you discharge your patients? I said, you know what happens? They need to wake up and start living their lives, and they need to be free. The problem is, sometimes, not even you have woken up to your own life. You just keep working like crazy. Then you think you've made progress.
The cool thing is when that patient goes out there and lives their life. I have patients, well, I'm not seeing patients anymore, but I used to, who I had already discharged, and they would show up once a year. I'd ask, did something happen? They'd say, I came to tell you about my progress.
How nice.
It's a positive thing. You can have a relationship with the patient. I came to tell you about my progress.
That's nice.
It's a gift you receive. It's a gift, you know, intangible but priceless.
It's just so good.
It's priceless.
Don't discharge me, doctor.
I've heard that before. I say, I'm discharging you because everything is going well, but I'm here if you need me. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. We're here. It's possible if you need it, and it's so beautiful, isn't it? It's so beautiful to see someone take flight. It's amazing, right?
So, good. So, it's the weapons. And in this pillar of meditation, of course, always in an ethical way, right? We're not in the office to proselytize about other things, you know? But when someone says, oh, doctor, it's a question in every appointment. The first appointment is always, do you believe in God? And so on. If the person doesn't believe, I totally respect that. But I notice people who believe in God and have fallen away from their faith in reality, from the practice of their faith, right?
Exactly. That's different from faith itself.
They believe, but they don't practice. There's a really interesting study that shows that those who, in addition to believing, actually commit themselves, whether it's through reading, praying, saying prayers, getting involved, taking action, and so on, this brings faith and hope. And it really lowers the level of tension. It's liberating. The problem is, there's even another dilemma. Who wins? Is it religion or science? Faith? Is it God or science? Honestly, the ones who lose are those who think this is a fight, too.
That's true.
Because, look, God was so good to us that He gave us psychology and medicine as ways for us to take care of what is within our reach. Because when you stop looking at God as a waiter who has to serve you and do everything for you, and you take on the identity of a child,
You have to honor your father.
you honor your father with your actions. I have 3 children. What I like most is not scolding them. It's not doing things for them. It's when Matthias goes there and he messes up. He does something, but then he gets back up. He knows he can count on me, but he's already learned what is the right thing to do. Or he'll try, and then, on his own, he'll say, "Dad, I did it." Paul says in the Bible that the things of earth are a shadow of the things of heaven. So I see God, and you all need to see Him this way too, not as a waiter, but as the one who is right there with you. But He knows He made you in His image and likeness. So there's a lot of good from Him in you. Just put it into action instead of using Him as an excuse.
Use that power.
Because a lot of people end up getting sick and even drifting away from practicing their faith. Because instead of using God as inspiration, they use Him as an excuse. Oh, I'm like this because God isn't in my life. That God doesn't love me. That God doesn't want me. I think God doesn't exist.
He forgot about me.
He forgot about me. Then there are others who. That's one of humanity's biggest excuses, blaming God. Others blame the enemy, the devil, Satan, and so on.
And it's the same thing, right? From a different point of view, but it's the same thing.
Then there are people who say, it's Anna's fault. It's not Alex's. It's the other one. So, the first, the second, and the third are all just big excuses, and the truth is, it's about me.
It's always going to be between you and him.
As a child, what can I do to be in His image and likeness? To be like Christ, to be a light in this world, salt of the earth, to bring flavor to existence, not just my own, but to create a thirst in those around me, showing them it's possible to live differently. And when you start unlocking this question of identity, you gain a purpose. The day I understood this, Alex, my office was full of clients. And every day, Anna, I would come home with this feeling, kind of like. It was a real sadness, like something was wrong, you know? And the day just went on. I remember grabbing a bunch of money and throwing it on the table, just like that. Put that away. And then I thought, how ungrateful of me, right? And I kept thinking, my God, I ended up getting depressed. I need to get help. I can't just stay like this. I was about to go, but then I started to meditate, to reflect. Wait a minute, I'm not really making a diagnosis here. Okay, but it's more like an existential depression. Something is missing. That's when I started. I learned about Ikigai,
Ikigai, that's really cool.
that Japanese concept. I was in a class.
Which has everything to do with meaning and purpose.
Exactly. And in that class, I remember the teacher asking, are you doing something you love? Are you doing something you have a talent for? Are you getting paid for it? And I was like, yes, 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 in my head, yes, yes, yes. Then he said, look, the Japanese, who live well for over 100 years, they do this. But the fourth question is, what do you do? Does it change the world? Are you transforming the world? The moment I heard that, I thought, wait a minute, I'm keeping to myself what God gave me. Because, in front of me, I live in the countryside of Parana. Only those who are close to me can sit.
Very close.
Only those who can afford to be there. But that's unfair to those who are far away.
Or those who want the knowledge so they can have some level of activity in their own work.
Then, I saw that and said, now I get it. I'm not overflowing. I'm being selective, right? I really am being selective.
No, things are great in your little micro world, but it's not spreading out around you.
And talent, when you bury it, it buries you. You know? It's good for us to have a sense of identity, but when I realized that, I didn't even have Facebook or anything. It was a little before the pandemic hit. I said, as much as I value my family's intimacy and privacy, I can't just throw away lives where I could make a difference. So I went to learn about the internet and all that stuff. And at first, sometimes you have that expectation to go viral, but every now and then, over there. But I knew I was doing the right thing.
That's the only thing that matters. Knowing that you're doing what you believe in.
It's really good. It's really good. And that's what you all do. And it's nice to do, right?
It's nice, even nicer. Nice. Felipe. It's getting some feedback. I get a lot of feedback on social media. Like, I went through the depression journey in the 4 classes. And after those 4 classes, I completely changed. I'm just trying to. Actually, I'm not trying to do anything. I just want to tell you that it flipped a switch in me. And I wanted to say that you were the spokesperson for that. So, thank you very much. I get at least 3 messages like that a day. And it gives you a rush, a dopamine hit, like, yeah, this is the right path. The feeling that, even with our flaws, because we're human, but somehow, this, overflowing, this, sharing, is giving meaning. It's giving meaning to someone else's life.
It's a different kind of dopamine, not the cheap kind, right? Yeah, the kind that comes from pleasures. It's a form of alienation, right? It's not always just about medication. It's in buying, in having, in owning, in our desires.
Behavioral addictions, right? Because, like the internet itself, there are some really great things, but there are also addictive, very negative things. And I'm not saying this, I'm not one of those radicals, like, oh, let's get rid of social media. No, I don't think so. I actually think that more and more people who think like us need to take up space there, to give people the option to choose. I'm not here to say, get rid of the social media accounts of those who sell superficial things. No, there's room for everyone. But it's no use, like I saw many colleagues do, and I remember that at the beginning of social media, there were colleagues who would report others to their regional boards, saying that what they were doing was improper advertising. As if saying, like, no, this guy can't do that because he's not a serious doctor. I thought that was so arrogant. If you think it's not serious, take that spot yourself and do it, in a serious way. That's what democracy and respect are about.
Exactly.
Trying to block someone else's path is either malice or envy. Either way, it's not good energy.
It's not. It's harmful.
Right?
Very good.
But that's how it goes, right? My dear, we have. There's a community called Sustainable Human Being, which is a group where we provide a lot of material about general health knowledge and, especially, mental health. So, we make all that available there. They have something called a direct line with Bia, which is where they can ask questions. I answer them by audio, even on weekends. I've been answering a lot. So, there are lay people. Others are professionals, but what they all have in common is that they value knowledge and believe. And knowledge is the only real way to bring about change, right? That's what we were talking about. And then, every time we're going to bring in a guest, we announce who that person is 15 days in advance and share their social media. Usually, it's Instagram. And these people go there. We ask them not to follow, because otherwise it raises a flag. We ask them not to follow, but to check it out and send in the questions they'd like us to ask you. Then, after the episode airs, we say, now you can follow. Then you'll see the difference. Let's go. First question. How does diet affect mental health, and which foods do you recommend to improve it?
Cool.
Guys, I'm not a nutritionist. It is not. That's something else. We also have a partner at the clinic. Nutritionist. We exchange ideas with her all the time. So, there's no such thing. It's not about the nutritionist being less or more important.
We value and respect everyone's role.
Everyone has their own part, and I've always said that no one is more important than anyone else. What matters is that this team works together to make sure things turn out well. Period. That's our goal. Did it work out? It worked out. Then it was God's will. And we just made his job a little easier. That's all. So, let's get to it.
Let's go. When it comes to diet, there's that little rule I find really interesting, which is peel more, unwrap less. Because the more you eat natural, unprocessed foods, the more it aligns with your natural state. There are already plenty of studies showing that. An excess of, especially, sugar. A lot of white flour. This increases the imbalance of your gut flora. People call this dysbiosis.
Exactly.
There's a whole community of living things in your gut. But if you eat things that feed the bad bacteria more, they start to overpower the good ones in your gut flora. And that's when problems start. If you eat a lot of sugar, a lot of sweets, a lot of fat, those saturated and unsaturated fats, that's going to throw your gut flora out of balance. Then it will start to cause damage, creating tiny cracks, little openings in your intestine, to the point where things that shouldn't get into your bloodstream start to pass through. And it will also interfere with the absorption of extremely important free acids, like acetate, butyrate, and propionate. They are extremely important for the health of the blood-brain barrier, which acts like a shield for our brain, preventing harmful things from getting inside. So, if you eat poorly, your body produces toxic substances, and because your intestine is damaged, those substances get absorbed, enter your bloodstream, and end up interfering with your brain's protective shield.
It's a local inflammation that leads to central inflammation.
Exactly. It will also change the way your neuroglia functions. So, it will interfere with how the employees of your neurons work.
Which is the neuroglia? I call it neuroglia. Same thing, right? Neuroglia. Who is the cleaning lady, right? The team of the brain, exactly.
And really, the brain is a team sport, not an individual one. A neuron doesn't play alone. If it tries to, it dies. If you eat poorly, you're hurting your brain's team. And as a result, you'll end up in oxidative stress, in an inflammatory state, and that's going to hurt you. Depending on what you eat, for example, when we talk a lot about omega-3, it's extremely important. If you can manage to get about 300 or 400 grams of omega-3 every day, the kind that's sourced from the Nordic Sea, and so on, right? Freshwater use, that's going to help with. In the structure of your myelin sheath. In the availability for the cell membranes, because everything that happens in terms of information, biochemically speaking, it's not one neuron touching another, it's the membrane, and if it has good vitality. And many neurotransmitters have their own hormonal aspects, they'll be well produced to enable communication. If you eat the wrong things, you're going to mess that up. That's how it is. We're in 2024.
24.
And we're still saying what Hippocrates said so long ago.
Exactly.
We are what we eat. It ends up being true because of who influences us. So I started to study. Julio was here with you guys.
Yes, Julio, Luque, man.
I started getting curious about this because, in medicine, we know what's good for everything is usually good for nothing, right?
No, this magic pill thing.
This magic that works for everything. It's not really like that.
Be careful, sometimes things resolve on their own, like a cold, right? There are a million remedies for a cold because it's going to get better anyway.
It gets better on its own, most of the time. If your immune system is decent, it clears up just fine.
So, omega-13, Alex, if it's not good for this, what was it even for? You walk into a pharmacy, and now there's more omega-13 than anything else. These days, right?
Exactly.
But which one do you use? How do you know? And all that. Julio gave me some tips, like Felipe, study this and that. So I went to check it out. I don't remember if it was in 2022, but CAMET, that highly respected Canadian guideline, for mood disorders and all that. There was a whole chapter in CAMET just about nutraceuticals, which are herbal medicines, supplements, and so on, with some scientific evidence of benefit. When I saw that in CAMET, I thought, wait a minute. This thing.
It makes sense. It's not here. So, where is it? It makes sense, right?
So, just to add a bit more, there are things that, unfortunately, depending on where you live, because of Availability, price. Sometimes there are foods you just can't eat in the amount needed to get the right dose of the active ingredient. The one that's good for your brain. And what about omega-3? It's great, but which one? That's when I realized.
EPA or DHA?
Is it EPA or is it DHA? So, here's the thing, the research. They show that EPA, which is one of the active ingredients, when you take a dose of about 1,000 milligrams per day of EPA, you get more benefits in terms of mood regulation. So, for cases of depression and bipolar disorder, it's like you can achieve better balance when you take that amount of EPA. Of course, it doesn't treat bipolar disorder. That's not what I'm saying.
No, everything. It's just an extra help. We're not going to stop with this miracle thing. It's the little things that add up. A combination of small things together.
But if you don't need to increase your medication because of this, wow,
That's a big remedy.
that's great. So EPA above 1,000 milligrams has more benefits for mood. DHA above 600 milligrams will have more benefits for anxiety and structural issues in the brain, which are related to memory.
Cognitive processes.
So, the cognitive aspect, exactly. Of course, if we look at some studies in the area of ADHD, they say the ideal would also be above 1,000 milligrams of DHA. For dementia, if you have parents or a family history with a risk of Alzheimer's and so on, you should use an omega-3 that contains this DHA. So, what does the industry do to try to stretch things? Be smart about it, okay? They put 1,000 milligrams on the label. Then, people who listen to our podcast here. And you, do you have 1,000? They said it there, but they're adding up the EPA and the DHA. You have to check how much of each one there is.
That's just real for me. Exactly that.
And as for DHA, you need at least 600. So, if you have it tough like that, be patient, as they say, doctor. Finally, I found a product, but the person is only taking 1 capsule a day. Check it out. You'll see that it's written there in the nutritional information section that to reach that dose of 1,000, at least 600, you need to.
You have to take 3 or 4.
3, 4. Sometimes I get this, oh, doctor, but I heard that. Omega-3 causes prostate cancer, things like that. It depends on the type of omega-3 you're taking. Because, you see, it's extracted from salmon, from fish. These are fish that are pretty much at the top of the food chain. Look, I remember this from prep course, now.
Yeah, from prep course.
And there's a phenomenon called trophic magnification. What does that mean? It means that algae, which are contaminated by heavy metals, are eaten by little shrimp, then by small fish, and then by salmon. So, that means if there's just a little bit down at the bottom, by the time it gets to the salmon, it's going to have a high concentration of heavy metals. That's why, to protect the consumer, there are certifications, right? The MEG3 BIFOS.
Which guarantee the quality.
Exactly.
Purity, right?
And also, it's oil, right, Alex? How are you going to handle that? Be careful, you never know what kind you're using. And depending on the quality, sometimes you end up driving your wife away, right? Because you let one out and it smells like something straight out of the ocean.
Do you know what that smell is? With the gel capsules, right? Because of that, I always keep them in the freezer. And I never take it with anything hot. So, like, breakfast is out of the question, because coffee opens it up. I take it, and it goes through my stomach untouched, still frozen.
So you don't scare anyone, right?
If you put.
I use it a lot. Especially because my gut works really well with omega.
It gets better.
It gets better. It's really impressive.
So, to answer everyone, fruits, vegetables, it's what everyone already knows, right? Less sugar, less white flour, less salt, and supplementation. Omega-3 is really great. It's a really interesting thing.
Worth going to a nutritionist.
Of course it's worth it.
One who has that perspective.
Gets not just fat.
Who doesn't just focus on weight loss. And the perspective of that person's quality of life.
Just to add, I was reading the other day about folic acid. Some people have a problem with the conversion process.
Methylation.
So they can't take folic acid and turn it into L-methylfolate.
Exactly.
And in the process of forming serotonin, norepinephrine, and dopamine, what you need isn't folic acid, you need L-methylfolate. so I supplement my patients with it a lot. There are some studies that show, for example, patients with depression and anxiety taking medication, doing psychotherapy, taking the right medication at the maximum therapeutic dose, and they still weren't getting better. Then, when they did the genetic test, they saw there was a deficiency in the enzyme.
That's when you have to give methylfolate.
They didn't change anything about the artificial medication, the antidepressant. They started supplementing with L-methylfolate, 15 milligrams a day. After 3 months, the patient's anxiety and depression went into remission. And they didn't need to use the maximum dose of medication anymore. They were able to reduce it.
Which is extraordinary gain.
Psychotherapy worked because it's terrible, right, Alex? When you're with someone's severe depression, they don't understand you.
Exactly.
If I'm really down, I can't get as much out of therapy as I could. Let's go.
Next one, brew.
Are there risks of dependency when using Ritalin to improve study performance and focus? What alternatives do you suggest?
Now we enter ANA's area. No.
Well.
You have to be careful with that kind of use, right? It has to be used with proper judgment.
First, you need to have a diagnosis.
Because there are people using it without a diagnosis.
The term for it is cognitive doping. And you know how athletes, when the Olympics are coming up, they have to take tests. If we did that in college or during entrance exams, oh my God.
A lot of people would be out of.
It went round, round, round. So, if you don't have a real reason, don't go ahead if you don't have a diagnosis and you're not using it the right way. Even though I'm talking about a controlled substance, this is a controlled medication that's not a benzodiazepine. It's not a tranquilizer, but it will, yes, affect your mind.
It's stimulating, right?
And soon enough, you could end up with a chemical dependency. But honestly, Anna, what I see much more often is a psychological dependence on the medication.
Absolutely.
What do you mean? Oh, if I don't take it, Alex, I won't do well on the test. If I don't take it, I can't handle it.
That's dependency. It's security.
It's like when a young person, before having sex for the first time, takes Viagra to make sure it works. They take Viagra, and that's it, they're good to go. You get it? To make sure it works. So, that's complicated. There are people, especially in big cities, who have been using so much methylphenidate, lisdexaptamine, modafinil. They've been using.
And cures everything, but it causes heart arrhythmia. It's terrible.
And other times, they go out partying. Then too. Be able to work during the day, they take it to wake up, or if they have to study for something. People in the stock market are the worst, you know? Or those gamers who play with people from other countries, right? They keep taking it at night, so they live a normal life during the day and use stimulants to stay awake at night without feeling sleepy. How can you improve that by sleeping well? Because the first thing, even with my own patients who have a diagnosis, they use it, doctor, they're losing out. That's what they're offering. What are you doing? Nothing, doctor. What time do you go to sleep? Oh, midnight, 1 in the morning. What time do you wake up? 5, 6.
Do you turn off your phone?
No, right?
You stay on the screen.
If you don't get quality sleep, you won't get better. The best way to improve your studying is to train your brain by studying. So, if you're just on your phone all the time, that ends up creating it's not just an addiction. It's a release of dopamine in that moment.
Instant, those little doses, and it's terrible.
One of the mechanisms, I don't know if there are more important ones, but one of the mechanisms of attention deficit and hyperactivity is when your prefrontal cortex is not very sensitive to your normal dopamine. But if you get artificial dopamine released, artificial in the sense that it releases
from intense and short bursts of stimulation, exactly.
With really cool things, bright lights, and all that, this region that didn't have ADHD from. By receiving this so quickly, she can become desensitized. So when you have to sit in a chair to learn something that takes time, something you don't like but you need to pay attention to, your brain is already conditioned to quick, fun little things. Then it gives the impression that the person has ADHD, but that's not really the case. So, how do you improve this? By reducing the time on screens, doing physical activity, taking care of your sleep. That will help. with natural things. A lot, yes.
Consistency.
It's called neurobics.
Yeah.
It's like aerobics for the brain. So every time you stimulate yourself with those puzzles, jigsaw puzzles, crosswords, Sudoku. Oh, doctor, my head hurts when I have to do that. Then keep learning a new language, a musical instrument. That will improve your cognitive ability, and you'll see that you don't need those things.
Done. Next.
Right, perfect, just say it.
On the natural side, I've read studies about N-acetylcysteine. N-acetylcysteine.
Funny, I have good experience with N-acetylcysteine for anxiety.
Touches top. Above 2 grams.
Above 2 grams, exactly.
And it makes sense.
Trichotillomania, ADHD.
ADHD comes with anxiety. If you control the anxiety, you bring them back to focus.
That's it.
Very good. 4. ADHD. I haven't tried it, honestly. I wouldn't know. But for anxiety, it's very good. Next, brew. What is the impact of depression on the brain? And how do antidepressants, like sertraline, work to treat the condition? Also, what are the warning signs of an anxiety or depression crisis? Come on, I think this person got excited because he started throwing his sign. This is a strange question. Yeah. But let's go to the first part of the question.
Okay, let's do it. No, but I liked it. Look, just don't expect us to prescribe the medication you're hoping for.
Exactly.
It's already been proven that depression greatly increases the risk of dementia. That's true. Because someone in a depressive state has such a major imbalance of the brain biochemistry that this can do. It can affect synaptic function and can lead to an increase in early neuron death. So if everything, let's say, in quotes, goes right and you don't end up committing suicide, which is what depression can lead to, making your brain think life isn't worth living in the end, those who don't treat their depression have a much higher chance of developing early onset dementia. You'll become more forgetful, less attentive. You'll think that just taking Ritalin will fix it.
Exactly.
You get it? So, it actually causes a process of neurodegeneration in the brain.
Even from lack of use, right? Because someone who's depressed, they start to.
Yes. Then they stop doing everything. Sometimes, people even develop pseudo-dementia. They say, I'm forgetful, I'm not paying attention, and so on. It causes cognitive decline. No one will be able to live very close to you, either because of your sadness or because of your irritability, whether it's anxiety or depression. So, it really messes with your social relationships, with your ability to do the things you would like to do and could do. You'll end up unemployed. You'll have the frustration of seeing that Social Security doesn't easily approve disability benefits for this. So it's terrible. It's terrible. Both from a social perspective and a biological one, and so on. So, how does it work? In the past, people used to say, is it a lack of serotonin? No, okay. There was a lot of that monoaminergic hypothesis that it's missing, but that's been debunked for a while now. So it's not because it's lacking. I remember once I read a study that showed extremely happy people with low serotonin. Low. And depressed people with it even a little bit higher. So, the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, for example, sertraline, it's not that there's a lack. It's not because there's a lack of serotonin. It's more like this. Let's say you have to cross a river. And there's a strong current, and the current represents the symptoms: sadness, lack of motivation, hypersensitivity to criticism, demotivation, and so on. But you have to cross it. Inside your boat, do you know those cartoons where there's a guy and a bunch of people rowing? But then, the antidepressant is like that person who doesn't row, but stands at the bow of the boat,
Encouraging others to fly.
shouting, row, row. Because, sometimes, the neuron on the right is rowing, the other one is at a different speed. Then the boat doesn't move forward. Your life doesn't move forward. After a while, everyone gets exhausted and the boat sinks. So, that's how antidepressants work. They're a biochemical stimulus that keeps shouting at your neurons row with more. synchrony and harmony, so you can cross this river that, for many people, feels like an ocean of sadness, right? And reach the shore of health and happiness. So, that's basically how it works. How do I recognize the warning signs? I like to use the health PDF. Am I dealing with anxiety or depression? It's not a diagnosis, but it's a warning sign. So, whenever you have, because PDF is either an emotion, a feeling, or a symptom, whenever you have an emotion that is P, is it proportional to what's happening in your life, or is it out of proportion? So, what is the proportion of your feeling? D, how long have you been feeling this way, especially if it's out of proportion? F stands for function. Is this emotion interfering with your daily life, whether in relationships, at work, or at school? So, these are warning signs. Keep this in mind. Oh, but I'm sad. My father died, for God's sake.
That's normal.
I lost my prince. That's normal. There are family members involved in the tragedy that happened in Rio Grande do Sul. Are you feeling tense, worried?
You should be, otherwise something's wrong. If you're in shock, you're not processing it.
Now, yes, it's been a while. And another thing, the absence of appropriate emotions is also a symptom.
Yes, of course.
It's not always about being overly emotional. So, if you feel something, that doesn't really make sense, and some people say, Doctor, how is this possible? I've been through so many tough things in my life, Alex, and I never felt like this. Now that life is actually pretty good. I am. That's a warning sign. Doctor, it's a sadness, but it's been more than 14 days now, about 2 weeks. I shouldn't be feeling like this. The criterion for depression is more than 2 weeks. And, oh, I'm thinking about quitting my job. I think about leaving my husband. I'm hitting my kids a lot. I'm not being productive. It's interfering with your functioning. Warning sign, look for a good psychologist as soon as possible. Oh, but it's still mild.
Seriously, you can never go wrong by seeing a psychologist.
You'll never make a mistake. Exactly.
And this psychotherapy professional. They'll refer you to a psychiatrist, depending on the severity or the availability of professionals, or you can go straight to a good psychiatrist who will also guide you to a psychologist.
Have this back and forth with the psychiatrist. Don't be shy about it. Like, oh, they treat and I heal. That's nonsense. The dialogue between professionals needs to be honest and open.
So, warning signs for psychiatric disorders, PDF of health. Proportion, duration, function.
Exactly. Perfect. Next, brew.
I really like your community.
It's cool.
It's always good to have.
They are very dedicated.
What are the best treatment options for patients suffering from fibromyalgia, especially those who experience chronic pain and insomnia?
Good one, good one. People with fibro really suffer.
I suffer a lot.
All right, let's get into it. Fibromyalgia, even though it's considered a pain disorder, a disease, let's put it that way, it's usually a pain syndrome as a consequence. So, it's more like a set of symptoms rather than exactly a disease. It's very common for people with fibromyalgia to have mood and anxiety disorders, with insomnia as a symptom. So, to improve fibromyalgia, painkillers alone won't help. Talk to your psychiatrist about it.
It will end with laughter. The stomach.
I've seen patients with fibromyalgia taking high doses of morphine and still in pain. So, how are you supposed to treat it? You need to identify if there's an underlying depression or anxiety disorder. Anna, what I'm seeing in my clinical practice. How common it is for bipolar disorder type 2, which is bipolar depression, to cause fibromyalgia. One of the criteria, well, not exactly criteria, right? Every time there's the feeling they call Lee paralysis, a heavy body, a racing, irritable mind, poor response to antidepressants, and so on. And sadness, right? Check with your psychiatrist because it could be bipolar disorder type 2. In that case, instead of antidepressants, you need to use a mood stabilizer.
That's also a really good point you're making, right? Because type 2 bipolar disorder, we had a wonderful colleague here. Renato Silva, who was here talking, did an amazing job discussing bipolar disorder. People don't realize it because they're used to seeing type 1, which is that thing with delirious euphoria. But there's also type 2, which is more subtle, but it also brings really big, terrible challenges that people don't recognize as a problem.
It takes 20 years on average for someone to be diagnosed with type 2 bipolar disorder. That's the average. So, check with your doctor to treat the underlying cause. But I have insomnia. Really? Insomnia 2, Alex, is almost never a disease in itself. It's a symptom of some other illness.
Most of the time. Now, I also see fibromyalgia itself often leading to depression as a consequence.
Depression.
It can. It starts with the pain, right? So, how do you treat it? If it's depression or an anxiety disorder, what has the best chance of responding to treatment? They're dual-action antidepressants, which affect both serotonin and norepinephrine. For sleep, stay away from those heavy-duty medications and talk to your doctor about what they can prescribe instead. And, there's also number 11, a mood stabilizer that helps you sleep and makes things better. And another thing, let's work on sleep hygiene, psychotherapy, changing habits, and getting some physical exercise. It's strange, isn't it? And you're telling me to exercise? Don't be a slave to your own willpower. Just do it, trust the advice you're given, and go for it. At first, it hurts, but it's a pain you know will be temporary. As you start moving, your body begins to loosen up. There's something really interesting here that actually ties into your field. Fibromyalgia is more common in people who have repressed emotional pain. So the person doesn't speak up, doesn't confess the cause to others, and that's why they don't get healed. When your mouth stays silent, actually, when you keep quiet, your body ends up screaming for help. So it's really interesting.
Especially when it comes to emotional issues. People have a really hard time talking about it, seriously. And then you get fibromyalgia mixed in, and if it gets worse, I've seen it a lot, autoimmune diseases can show up too.
Absolutely. And it's there, right? Everyone's laughing. It's just too much. It's really too much.
Very, very good.
That's it.
Next one, brew.
What's the relationship between melatonin and sleep quality? What are the pros and cons of long-term use?
Great question. When I talked about nutrition, did you notice that? I think everyone expected me to say that the serotonin from the gut does. That it's the second brain and serotonin. But it doesn't get there. It's not used.
No, that's not it. That's the brain. It's not the serotonin produced in the gut, even though it is produced there. But that's not the one that goes to the brain. It keeps the barrier there working properly so you can absorb the good nutrients that will help the brain. Exactly.
And it acts as a mediator for other cells.
It signals up there for production, but it's not the same thing.
That's not it. The same thing happens with melatonin. And in the formation of serotonin, a little bit in the cascade, it takes a detour and becomes melatonin. So, just like this artificial serotonin you take won't have that access to your brain, but it can have a relaxing effect on other cells. So for some people, even more so. I fall asleep when I take it. It probably causes some muscle relaxation. It reduces a bit of that overload of adrenaline that anxiety causes in someone, or that a burnout lifestyle brings. So, as your body relaxes a bit, for some people, it helps, but that's pretty common. And after a while, if you don't fix your life, it's going to stop working. So, it's not some kind of miracle cure. People get upset that I don't talk about melatonin much on my Instagram. I have talked about it, but it's just not this cure-all. It's not the ultimate solution.
Nothing is a cure-all, right? I always say, whenever something claims to be good for everything, libido, this, that, whatever, it's not really like that. It can be good, but you have to be discerning, right? If you don't make changes, if you're not proactive, nothing works.
You have to change your behavior.
Or it works really well.
But it ends the same way, Alex.
But that's how it is. That's just how it is.
It's a good thing that it doesn't exist, right, Alex?
But look. We wish it were different, but like you said, it's not. It's not chaos, it's cosmos. The cosmos has rules. There are existential rules. And we have to understand that we need to follow those rules, and we have to deal with them in the best way possible. Next, brew. What are the benefits of omega-3 for mental health? And how can I effectively incorporate it into my diet? Answer. Next, brew. You.
Why do black label tranquilizers get so much criticism, and what are the alternative options? Is there any way to treat mood naturally? So, without relying exclusively on medication.
Chuo.
We talked about that a lot.
Yeah, we also talked a lot about that.
Yes. So, to sum it up and make it really clear,
When I say black label, I'm not talking about psychostimulants,
it's the sedatives.
the tranquilizers, finals, bread, and finals, wool. You guys can figure it out, right? They mess with your sleep architecture. You can't get to N1, N2. There are phases of sleep that, in order to occur, have to have a certain rhythm. There. Benzos, the black label tranquilizers. He gives one. They override all of that. So, they don't let you go through those stages. People usually say, oh, but it only messes with REM sleep. No, actually, it's easier for them to keep you in REM sleep. You just stay there. It doesn't let you enter that deeper sleep that actually rests and relaxes you. You sleep. Let's put it that way. You sleep because you wake up the next day. But your body doesn't even realize that you actually slept. And if you don't sleep, your cortisol levels just keep rising, and you get more tired, more achy. Cortisol causes methylation and acetylation of DNA. And if you have a genetic predisposition to develop a disease, maybe that thing you're using that you got from your neighbor could be one of the triggers that sets it off. Alternatives: physical exercise, psychotherapy to improve your sleep hygiene, working through your conflicts that make you anxious, resolving this anxious way of living, which hasn't turned into anxiety yet, but really, it's about resting. It's about letting go of control.
Eating habits at night.
And getting some rest. There's lavender, which is the natural option.
From essential oil.
There are already recommendations for it. So check with your nutritionist, with your physical therapist. There are already studies showing the benefits of lemon balm, of chamomile. But be careful with teas, because sometimes if you pick the wrong flower, it could be dangerous, okay? Sometimes it's actually the leaf you need to use. There's a training I created called NaturalMente, which is all about what works and how to do it. Now, when it comes to mood disorders, if it's a mild stage, these things can even help. The main things that help with mood disorders are vitamin D, which we haven't talked about yet. So, if your blood level is above 60, there in the exam, there is help. There's also omega-3, with an EPA content above 1,000 milligrams. And L-methylfolate. Those are the ones that help the most.
So here we're talking about depression. When it comes to bipolar disorder, things change a lot, including the possibility of not needing medication. We need to make that clear, because bipolar he is always, when will I be able to stop taking medication? You won't.
I have my students, doctors, even a patient called, complaining at the office, my student, my doctor, a whole team of doctors to support the patients. He's not the same as you, where you talk about supplements and he didn't want to prescribe it, just didn't want to. So, I went to talk to my doctor from my team, and he said, "No, doctor, I did, but he had bipolar disorder type 1. He thought that just with supplements, he would be fine."
It's super important to make that clear. Because even though we're in favor of less medication, someone with bipolar disorder can't go without medication. We would love that. Diabetic still has a chance. Type 1, no. Type 2, there's still a chance. But someone with bipolar disorder can't live without medication. What we propose is less medication, more quality of life.
Yes.
You have to have much more control if you drink, if you exercise, if you sleep well. Someone with bipolar disorder can't sleep poorly. So, it's a life with a lot more restrictions, but if the person can understand that, it's a wonderful, extremely productive life.
Exactly.
And they're just so smart, right?
So much.
Honestly, when I see someone who's really smart, I think they're bipolar. Let's go, brew.
I'm normal, right? I fake the allergy.
For patients with type 2 disorder, what's the role of medication? in treatment, and how does it compare to other therapeutic approaches? We just talked about that, right? We're kind of predicting things here. Yeah. Because I think we already touched on that, right? And it's really important. Otherwise, people will say, oh, look, they're saying to stop medication. Then someone with bipolar disorder will think they have to stop taking it.
But actually, mood stabilizers are the first-line treatment, and the use of antidepressants in type 2 is super controversial. It's like those Congress wars, right? Use it, don't use it, don't use it well. The rule is, if you have to use it, we recommend it. Here, together with a mood stabilizer, don't go beyond 18 weeks using a mild antidepressant. At the same time,
one of those that make it harder to trigger a switch.
how does it work? It keeps your brain from having too many ups and downs. It's like you're having a breakdown. Sometimes your mind is going 300 miles an hour, and other times it's at 20. So, a mood stabilizer is kind of like a driving instructor. Who helps you? You take the wheel and control your foot on the gas pedal. So you don't end up too slow or sedated, because there are times in life when we need to act. Overtaking, exactly. But you need to have control over your restlessness and impulses, so you don't run through life's stop signs.
Exactly. Next one, brew.
How do you help patients who want to quit smoking? Are there any specific approaches you recommend?
Do you really want to quit smoking? That's the most important thing. I'd had plenty of patients who wanted to prove to me that the medication doesn't work.
It's really funny. It's a waste of energy
Money, energy. It's energy.
to prove that it is buried.
That patch didn't work. This medication can't do it. No one is going to be able to do something you don't want to do. Addictions in general, how important it is. Psychotherapy is important. Because if you need nicotine to bring you relief, it's because there's an emptiness inside you that, instead of dealing with it, you're trying to fill with something that doesn't actually fill it. So, that's very common. To get away from it, you'll have to fill yourself with what really matters and figure out what that is, map it out. Oh, I took it out on the cigarette. I was fighting with the cigarette, stressed out with the cigarette. Hold on a second. How about we fill life with meaning, so we need to smoke it less? Then, obviously, right, the person might have an issue with dependence, a chemical issue, and to keep you from just shifting, the compulsion,
Another addiction?
and to keep you from gaining weight. Because you switched to candy, if I could smoke, I would have eaten all these jelly beans here already, you get it? So sometimes we put it there to teach.
But there are nuts.
There are nuts over there.
You're forgiven.
So, sometimes we use, medication and patches. There's a gold standard medication that's hard to find here in Brazil. But honestly, medication, I'll tell you, is about 30 to 40% of the treatment for smoking addiction.
Help. If the person is really determined, it helps.
But the real change, really fixing your mindset and eliminating, the external triggers, friends who smoke, certain environments. There are people who, if they go to that little corner of the office, their brain immediately picks up on it and makes the association. Have a cup of coffee and you feel like smoking, so you're going to have to avoid that.
Give up some things.
Exactly. Pleasures they're triggered.
They're connected, right?
So, there's something really simple. That helps at the very end, when you change your environment, which is that your oral fixation gets affected. So I tell the patient, look, even if you have to fill up your freezer, just stock it with ice. Because if you put an ice cube in your mouth to stimulate that urge that's been there for 10 years, at least, it helps. And another thing, since the pleasure of having coffee or a drink acts as a trigger for smoking, always keep some really bad tasting paste on hand, like toothpaste. You put that on your tongue so that, when you smoke, you take away the positive reinforcement, you take away the pleasure from it. Of course, this doesn't solve everything, but Anna, in the end, like Alex, when the person
Combination.
You have to go from 5 to 0 cigarettes a day. And these little details, you say, "Doctor, I ran out of the paste, but look." And after you go about 2 months without smoking, it seems like your mind settles down and you don't have those cravings anymore.
And don't let those triggers from situations you always used to associate get to you. You have to be really alert, in the sense of not letting yourself get vulnerable in those moments, because your brain makes those associations.
Cigarettes can't be your crutch. No one walks.
No one born smoke.
No, and no one goes through life. No one runs with a crutch, you limp. So stop using that crutch and learn to walk.
No, you didn't always smoke. I remind people, I was born.
You've lived without.
You've lived for years. You weren't born smoking. There's that comparison. Next one, brew. Ah,
We've reached the Pepino moment. Pepino is our,
2 questions, right?
and our cucumber is our mascot. He was
he's a happy brain.
made by Gab. He's Anna's child.
Yeah, because he's made of kite powder, he's the pepino.
Yeah, and he likes to listen to good content, right? And he's here listening to your content. He's enjoying it. He's laughing. And then he sets up a little ping pong game with some keywords, which he's going to ask his mom to throw to you. And whatever comes to your mind, you answer.
Yes.
If you want to, skip or pass.
Nothing comes to mind. Fine.
You can do that too, okay? Shall we go?
Let's do it. Let's see.
All right, here we go. 1. Love.
God, myself, my wife, and my children.
2. Life purpose.
It's bringing psychoeducation to humanity in general. Bringing comfort to those who are not comforted.
Faith.
Faith is the supernatural that makes us step out of what was naturally supposed to go wrong, but can actually go right.
Happiness.
Yeah, it's more logical than, well, expected. Let's put it that way. Happiness is an equation.
Eva.
We can't confuse it with joy.
Which is different. You said it perfectly.
It's very different. It's a state of maturity.
Perfect. Perfect. And there's a lot of philosophy in it. To be happy, you need to have some philosophical understanding. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
Like detachment, right?
A lot. Number 5. A dream.
A dream? To make the whole world stop using prescription sleeping pills to fall asleep.
If the world were to end tomorrow, what would you do today?
Oh, I would stay with my wife and my kids and play a lot with them.
The coziness, the coziness. Gratitude.
Be grateful and you'll grow.
Be grateful and you'll grow. If you could enter a time capsule, would you go to the past, go back to the past, or would you go to the future if you could choose, and why? Okay.
Honestly, can I take someone?
You can.
If I could take my wife and my kids, I'd go back to the past.
To the past?
And
Why?
yeah, because, there's so much I know today. It's kind of like Descartes, you know? One of the great misfortunes of man is being born without knowing anything. Because if you knew, yeah, you'd do things differently. But he also says that the beauty of life is that I don't have to build a wall by myself, build everything alone. It's like you lay one brick, someone else lays another, and I put one on top, and that's how it goes, so that other people don't have that feeling of needing to go back.
So beautiful.
It's really beautiful.
So you'd go back, just to enjoy a little something more.
But honestly, no, I don't really have that much desire, you know? My present is really good. And as for the future, I'm sure I wouldn't want to go there, because I'm not ready for it. I need to grow in the present so I don't become vain, so I don't lose my way, my identity in the future.
That's right. What is something that can't be missing from your medical prescription?
From the prescription?
And
Yeah. That's true.
true. And lastly, complete the sentence. To have mental health is
To think like Christ, to live like Christ, and to make a difference in your journey here on earth. Being light and salt, just like Christ was.
salt of the earth.
Focus, strength, and faith.
Not the salt that gets trampled on, but the one that awakens
Flavor.
flavor in just the right amount.
Exactly. My dear, thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you here. Let's wrap up the brick cycle here, right? Now I'd like you to look. Oh, wait, just a second. I have.
There are the books.
If Happiness Were Spoken During the Pandemic.
Depression.
Depressive Minds and Manic Combs.
Thank you, everyone. Look at that.
In Depressive Minds, I start talking about faith. That was the first time I started. With a lot of care, okay? Yeah, now you're going to look at that camera, give all your messages, where people can find you, your proposal, everything you want to say, right there directly.
I will. Great, then. So, yes, it's possible for you to live a more balanced, more energized, calmer life, needing fewer and fewer tranquilizers. 2. Sleep well, you need to wake up, and I really want to have you with me. It will be an honor to have you as my follower on Instagram at Felipe Batistela. I'm on YouTube as well. That's the message. You can live differently. Yes, it's possible to be happy without health. We see a lot of people suffering in hospitals, right, and sometimes they're even happier than those who are healthy. But you can count on me because it's even better to live with mental health. So, I'm here to help you in this moment. There's comfort for you. There's a light.
There's a road ahead, right? There's a light to guide us forward.
Exactly.
Dear, thank you very much. Really, thank you. We're wrapping up another episode of PodPeople today, and it was with this awesome guy, Dr. Felipe Batistela. If you don't know him yet, I suggest you start looking him up here on YouTube or on Instagram, because there's a lot of great stuff for you to learn and to become a better human being. If you're just joining us and you're not following us yet, follow us and hit the notification bell to get all the updates and news here on our channel. See you on the next PodPeople.